Hi, so I'm Emma. I'm based up at Northumbria University in the UK, where I fairly recently finished my PhD. So yeah, I'm going to be giving a very brief overview of the different work that I've done in my PhD, focused on ocean circulation and ice shelf melting in the Bellinghausen Sea. So I wanted to start off with some very, very quick background. I know that, everyone's knows about the Bellinghausen and Amundsen Sea here already. But in the Bellinghausen Sea, we've got some of the warmest temperatures on the continental shelf around Antarctica, which drives really high basal melt rates of the ice shelves. So if we want to understand sort of what's influencing the West Antarctic ice sheet in the Bellinghausen sector, it's really key to understand the regional oceanography and the sort of processes driving that to improve our understanding here. So to do that, I'm using a cruise data set that was collected back in 2007. And this map on the right-hand side shows all the different cruise stations. So in total, there were 253 different stations. So it was a really extensive cruise across the region. And the data from this includes CTD data, so sort of temperature, salinity, and dissolved oxygen, as well as there was shipboard ADCP with velocity data. So I'm going to start off by talking about the shelf break. So just to point out on the map, we've got Belgica Trough in the west over here and Marguerite Trough in the east over here. So I've got some figures here that are showing from each of those troughs the maximum potential temperature in the water column. So at both troughs, we clearly see the ACC flowing along the continental slope, which is critical in that it brings really warm, unmodified circumpolar deep water into close proximity to the shelf break. So not very far offshore of the shelf break, we see unmodified CDW with temperatures sort of around 2 degrees C. And accompanying this, we also see eastward flow. So these arrows are showing depth integrated mass transport from the ADCP. So this is sort of roughly the upper 800 meters of the water column. So at Belgica Trough, you can see sort of flow following the bathymetry. And then we also see strong flow at Marguerite Trough. And then if we look at the trough mouths, we can see quite clear on-shelf mass transport at both troughs. And as the water moves across the shelf break and onto the continental shelf, the CDW is cooled and modified as that happens, which we're going to look at now. So I've got some TS diagrams here to look at water properties and how they're modified as water crosses the shelf break. And at Belgica Trough, which is in the top panel, so it's all color-coded according to depth of the bathymetry at each station. So at Belgica Trough, you can see quite a clear separation that in the deeper water, you see really unmodified CDW, which is gradually cooled and modified as the bathymetry shoals. So it's quite clear that bathymetry is an important control on the modification of circumpolar deep water here. But if we look at the bottom panel at Marguerite Trough, you don't really see that same relationship, which suggests that there's other things that are important here. And eddies are known to be a key transport mechanism across the shelf break here. We do observe a couple of eddy-like features in the data. So yeah, these kind of eddies that are quite critical at Marguerite Trough for transporting CDW across the shelf break. And then if we zoom in a little bit to look at how the CDWM member changes, these pink dots are two different circumpolar deep water end members that I see on the shelf C. So these are chosen based on shelf C data as opposed to at the shelf break. So we've got the eastern end member here and a western end member here. So we see two slightly different types and properties of circumpolar deep water on the shelf. So the western end member that flows on at Belgica Trough is a little bit cooler. And that's because we see a bit of uplift of lower circumpolar deep water, which gets onto the continental shelf. The bathymetry is a little bit deeper at Belgica Trough. So this sort of enables this lower circumpolar deep water and a cooler, slightly more saline end member across the shelf C. In contrast, at Marguerite Trough, it's a bit warmer because we see these eddy-like features that transport upper circumpolar deep water across the shelf break and contribute to an M member that's warmer and lower in oxygen. So then if we have a look across the Shelf Sea and sort of what the regional differences are across the Shelf Sea, in this map in the bottom, I've sort of highlighted the sections that I'm looking at, and these are average profiles for the data across these sections. So I've got these two different shades of blue in the east and this sort of like pink and yellow, orange, whatever you want to call it, in the west. And you can quite clearly see that in the east of the region, we've got a much warmer water column. So the deeper water, the CDW, is warmer, as well as the surface water is warmer, and there's also a notably shallower thermocline in the east. So yeah, this is key for if we want to think about the ice shelves, that it's important. What are the circulation patterns? What water is interacting with the ice shelves and driving melting? So I've now removed some of the shelf break profiles and plotted up ice front ones instead. So we've got an orange one here from Ronnie Entrance, which is at the southern end of George VI ice shelf. And this purple profile is right at the northern ice front of George VI ice shelf. And what you might notice is that the water at the northern end of George VI ice shelf looks a lot more similar to the western water column than the eastern water column. So you can see, particularly if you look at this sort of zoomed in bit of the TS diagram, that water, which is this profile sort of here at the northern end of the ice front, very closely matches our western end member and suggests that there's a through flow underneath George VI from the southern to the northern end. And it's this sort of western end member that's cooler that drives most of the melting here, which is also supported by velocity calculations. So I've got a little map of the sections that I'm presenting here in the top right-hand side. So these sections enclose Stange, Bark, and George VI ice shelf. And on the top panel, I've got the meltwater fraction, and the lines drawn on are the isotherms. The bottom panel is velocity with isopycnals drawn on. And red positive velocities are flowing out of the cavity. So if we look at Ronnie Entrance, this middle section that's at the southern end of George VI ice shelf, we can see there's certainly some areas of outflow, for example, here and sort of the middle of the western side, that looks like a meltwater outflow. But overall, there's a net inflow at Ronnie Entrance, and there's a net outflow at the northern end of George VI. And there's a relatively strong meltwater outflow at this sort of surface on the western side here. So this through flow is about 0.25 sphere drop, which is quite similar to sort of a Jenkins and Jacobs paper. For those of you who are familiar with that, it's a very similar circulation. And I've gone through sort of various inversion calculations to constrain the basal melt rate. So basal melt rate is somewhere around 3 meters a year for George's. That's average basal melt rate for George VI, Bark, and Stange ice shelves. If we then look at Wilkins, so again, that map sort of shows the different sections enclosing Wilkins ice shelf. So you'll see that there's notably lower concentrations of meltwater around Wilkins ice shelf. And overall, if through each of the sections, that there's relatively weak net fluxes of mass through the section. So sort of the circulation within the ice shelf cavity appears to be a bit weaker at Wilkins compared to the through flow underneath George VI. And we find that there's a lower basal melt rate here, so around 1.5 meters a year. And this is because Wilkins is a shallower ice shelf. The ice base is probably around 100 meters. So it's mainly sat in that sort of cold surface water, the winter water layer, and there's less heat available to drive melting. So just a very brief comparison to other work. The numbers I've got for basal melt rates agree fairly well with satellite estimates and would suggest that at the time of the cruise, so back in 2007, the ice shelves are melting relatively close or slightly above their equilibrium basal melt rates. So where does sort of this meltwater go after, it's driven melting in the ice shelf cavity? The maps I've got here show your depth integrated meltwater content, and the arrows overlaid on there are from the ADCP looking at mass transport just in the upper water column. So if we start on the right-hand side of the page, you can see really quite high meltwater content extending north from George VI ice shelf, with sort of intensified flow along the coast of Alexander Island here. It sort of looks like it's going to turn towards the west and continue to follow the coast. At Wilkins ice shelf, we've sort of got what looks like southwesterly flow, sort of carrying some of this melt and fresh water. And then over in the west of the region, we see some sort of western outflow and higher concentrations of meltwater here at Ronnie Entrance. And then we see a very clear signature in El Tannin Bay of inflow on the eastern side and outflow on the western side. And you can very clearly see that in water properties as well, the difference between nearer the coast, where it's influenced by melt and fresh water, and sort of a very ambient water column in the middle. And then, yeah, this likely extends sort of westward, traveling out of the Bellingshausen Sea. So to sort of briefly summarize that very quick tour, so we see the Antarctic circumpolar current at the shelf break, which brings warm, unmodified circumpolar deep water in very close proximity to the shelf break and the continental slope. And at both Belgica Trough and Marguerite Trough, we see on-shelf transport of circumpolar deep water, and different shelf break processes mean that we get two slightly different CDWM members flowing on each trough, which influences the regional oceanography in the east and the west of the region. So in the east, we've got this slightly warmer 1.4 degrees C CDW flowing on through Marguerite Trough compared to sort of slightly cooler 1.2 degrees C flowing in through Belgica Trough here. And this goes underneath George VI ice shelf and emerges at the northern end. And it's this slightly cooler western end member that drives most of the ice shelf melting in the region. And in addition to these differences in the CDW, we've also got a colder, deeper winter water layer in the west and a deeper thermocline as well. So this is potentially important for ice shelf melting, that there's sort of a lower heat content in the west, and it's that water that's driving the melting. And these little blue arrows sort of following the coast appear to be the primary pathway of meltwater in the region. So a coastal current that, yeah, follows the coast in a southwestwards direction. And that's everything for me. And yeah, I'll look forward to the discussion at the end.